They not like us. They not like us. They not like
Hey everybody, welcome back to Real Dads, Real Talk. Today is going to be a great episode. We're going to be covering father figures and role models. And for me, I invited a special guest. I'm going to let them introduce themselves momentarily. But again, this platform, Real Dads, Real Talk, is a safe space for men to be able to come and share some of our ideology, some of our values, talk about fatherhood, talk about brotherhood, talk about what it's like to be husbands and so on and so forth. But again, providing that safe platform for us to be able to come and dialogue amongst ourselves and talk about some things that we know that a lot of men are struggling with, dealing with. Again, talking about our good, talking about our bad, having real transparency. So today I'm joined by a very good man that I met through my wife, and a very good brother. We have Mr. Jarriel Jordan Sr. And also joined by JJ. So I'm gonna shut up and I'm gonna get off the X, and I'm gonna let Mr. Jordan kind of describe and introduce himself.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here today with you to discuss a very important topic. So again, Jarriel Jordan Sr. Again, it's just a pleasure to be here with you. So
Mr. Jordan, talk very briefly about what you've done in your career, where we're sitting right now. I think is something we should highlight, and kind of your initial viewpoint on fatherhood.
Right. Well, I mean, just from right here in Prince George's County, a lot of passion for Prince George's County. Graduated from Oxon Hill High School, Bowie State University after that. I was a school teacher after I left college, and then I went on to the Prince George's County Police Department, served 23 years, retired in 2019. Had several, just very interesting assignments with the police department. Started our family nonprofit, Jacob's Ladder, in 2016. We're doing great things here in Prince George's County and in the DMV.
Right.
And we're really just standing in the gap right now about, just giving back. Our give back game is strong. So we're really standing in the gap right now and just doing some great things in the community.
Right. And we're gonna hit on Jacob's Ladder, all the great things that they're doing in the community, and just how it is the leading nonprofit foundation and organization. And to my left, I have my good brother, also a DeMatha graduate, gentlemen and scholars. So shout out to DeMatha, the leading institution in high school across the country for academics and athletics. But JJ, go ahead and kind of introduce yourself. What do you do?
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate you having me here. Jarriel Jordan Jr., JJ. I'm a real estate investor that works with a niche clientele of buyers and sellers throughout this DMV area.
So JJ is very, very humble. So he ain't gonna really give himself the shout out, but I believe you were 10 under 10 or something like that.
40 under 40.
40 under 40, excuse me. He corrected me on that one, right? 40 under 40.
Yeah, 40 under 40.
Of how he has almost transcended the real estate game. When I grew up and I thought of a realtor, there were those old ladies, going
That's
out
how
and
it used to
knocking
be.
on doors.
That's how it used to be. They got a young, fresh face.
Yeah. So I'll start off with you, Mr. Jordan. You talked about serving the community for 23 years, especially being in the District, Maryland, and Virginia area. Being a police officer, you probably have seen some things. How has that kind of shaped your ideologies on fatherhood?
It just made me definitely want to make sure I was paying attention to what was going on at home, right? And I can say just
you were on the watch, surveillance, 24/7.
24/7. But
They feel like it.
Yeah. He was always focused. Now I'll talk about that as I continue. But I did like 6 years with the homicide unit, right? Okay. And I can tell you, man, just coming out of the homicide unit, one of my desires, I was telling the police department, it's straight day work after this, right? It was going to be all about the family. And this is, I guess Jay at that time was going like through middle school. Okay. So it was really time to get him ready for high school, right? I could see the athleticism from him. He wanted to, continue on football. And of course, we were getting ready for DeMatha. So after that, man, after I left homicide, I was determined to have a straight day work job because the hours were crazy, right? Getting called out in the middle of the nights and all that good stuff. So I wanted to make sure that I could just solely concentrate, on the family, because I had sacrificed so much for the police department. So that time was shifting, right? So that was determined to do that, and then that's what formed and shaped, I guess, my approach really to fatherhood. But it was before that. But at that time, it was like, right now I got to take care of what I need to take care of, make sure, Jay is getting prepared. Jay has an older sister, Dominique, our daughter.
Right.
She's 4 years older. She was off to college by then, okay? But at this time, it was about getting him ready for high school.
Right. And so what kind of made you go into the police department? Was it your dad, or that's not something a lot of people say, hey, I want to grow up and be a police officer. So what kind of led you on that journey?
Well, I was a school teacher beforehand, and shout out to all the school teachers, but they just don't make a lot of money, right?
Right.
So when it came down to the police department, I had a lot of friends that were doing very well. Very well in the police department. So I started just paying attention to that, just to increase the lifestyle that I wanted our family to live.
Right.
So that was one of the things, man. But also just staying involved in the community had a lot of attraction to me, because I always did things in the community. Even before I was in college, I was coaching Little League football in the Oxon Hill, Fort Washington area. So I've always coached. I coached Jay up until he went to high school. So it was just one of those things. It still allowed me to be involved in the community.
Right. And so, Jay, I want to hit on kind of your experiences with your dad coaching you. So we, talked briefly about my dad. My father coached at DeMatha way before you kind of got there, Jay. But I would say being the coach's kid, man, that was an experience in itself.
Yeah.
So, everybody calls me Manning and doesn't really, know why. But my dad, being in the military, he showed up at practice. He had them leather boots on. He was in them, battle dress uniform, BDUs, and he was Sergeant Manning when he stepped on that field.
Right.
And some of those experiences that I had when I played at Laurel Boys and Girls Club, it was rough, man. It was challenging because I couldn't separate the two between being, do I have Coach Manning or do I have Dad? I always saw Dad, but he made sure that he was, he let everybody know that that's my son, and I'm going to raise my son to be, or coach my son rather, to be tougher than the next person. So whenever it came down to like bull in the ring, I always knew I was going to be the first one and the last one, no matter what. Oklahoma drills, guess what? First one and the last one. And he was always going to make sure I had to hit the biggest person. So there was a little bit of like, animosity almost. But it almost trickled back into the house, because I felt on the field that I could be free. It's where I can let out the rage and the anger that was brewing kind of in my household. So for me, that experience is. So I'm curious, Jay, for you, what that experience was from a son. You ain't gotta be nice, man. He's smiling. He's like, hold on. He's about to open some can of worms. What was that experience like? As a father and son duo, being coached and then transitioning into who you are.
It was fine. He was never my position coach.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was kind of like off to the side type coaching, but he was always there giving me advice. Always on the sidelines. Basketball was a different story. He was the head coach.
I didn't know you hooped.
I was young, man.
Okay.
Yeah. That was a different story. During that time, I think it was more of, like you said, for example, we had a halftime game at the Wizard Stadium one time. He was like, that's my son. Make sure he gets the first bucket. I missed that joint. Second bucket, I missed it. But yeah, it was kind of like that more so on the basketball court, because he was the head coach. But when it came to football, off to the side more so, doing different positions. So it was fine with football. Not too much interaction because it was different sides of the field.
Right. And so now you have your own son, Parker. Hope you don't mind me saying his name out.
Sure,
but Parker, what are you going to take away when it comes down to Parker's time? I would assume that you're going to want him to do some sort of athletics. But the reason why I ask that question is because there's a lot of kids that will experience their parents trying to live their life through them and trying to force the things that they wanted to do on their children, and I would say I was a victim of that. What are you going to take away? What are you going to try to emulate or do better than say your situation when it comes down to Parker?
I don't think I'll do anything different. One thing I say is off the field, we did a lot of work at Fort Washington, and that was more so like when I got him for real,
right,
when it came to football. But everything that I did with him, I'm gonna pretty much do with my son,
right,
Parker. And as far as like trajectory, what I want him to do, we'll figure it out as he goes. If he wants to play football, that's fine.
Right.
If he wants to play a different sport, that's fine. Whatever he likes is what I would want him to do.
But he has to play some sport.
Oh, 100%.
Got it right. Okay.
100%.
Yeah, so let me just say, even as we're talking about sports, never lived through my son with anything, right? I always wanted to make sure that he understood his abilities.
Right.
Right. Definitely. A tremendous athlete. I think he may have he was under 4.3, seemed like. Under 40. What was your fastest 40 time?
4.31.
4.31. All right. His fastest 40 time. So tremendous athlete. So I always wanted him to understand just when when you're gifted, when you're talented in something, maximize it.
Right.
That was it. You know what I mean? So it wasn't, living the room. Just like you said, I was never his position coach on purpose when it came down to football. And he was just always driven. Jay was just like driven, determined, super duper focused. He would want to go run hills at Fort Washington. He would want to go down to Friendly and run up and down hills and drag ties and do all that type stuff. So it wasn't like I was forcing him to do this stuff. He was getting me out of bed. Right?
Right.
So he's always been that focused, and I'm just with his career right now. I'm not surprised one bit with the success that he's having.
Right.
Because of his drive, his determination, and just his overall approach.
Right. So, I commend you both kind of for how you kind of navigated those waters. So for you, what was your dad active at that time for you, or how did you get to balance that? Because that doesn't happen a lot. Yeah. And we're gonna show a quick video of you running them hills. I seen you running them hills, life vest, and everything else going on.
Right.
That was when I was in college. That was later.
Okay.
Same stuff apply.
Right. So Fort Washington Park. Shout out to Fit for HANA where we do our family walks. Join us on Saturday mornings from 8:30 to 9:30. It's a great time. So bring your families out. But for you, how was your upbringing, and what kind of put you on the path to conquer that space? Well,
I'll tell you what. So my father, man, he died tragically. Lost him when I was 17.
Okay.
So I have a little brother. He's 6 years. He's 11 years younger than me, right? So tragically lost him, 17 years old. So, I became the man of the house overnight, right? So I was always focused, just trying to make sure that baby bro saw something positive in life. Okay. So I was determined to do that. And just watching my mom, man, just, it can be touching, when you see somebody, man.
Yeah, that's
really, I've never seen my mom take a bad step in her life. Yo, we can continue.
Real dads, real talk, right?
Yeah. I've never
Powerful.
seen her take a bad step in her life, man.
Jay, how does that make you feel, man? What emotions does that kind of bring for you?
Soft as my heart, man. Soft as my heart. My grandma's the sweetest person ever.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And for y'all that don't, again, majority of you all sitting out there don't know me. Mr. J is probably one of the biggest father figures I've ever had in my life. My junior flight training academy, our junior flight training academy right here was all established through his vision. And if you know him and if you know what Jacob's Ladder does, it brings the whole community together. I don't think there's ever been a month that Jacob's Ladder and the home team realty group, has gone without doing something for the community to try to shape it. And I think what we see here in this Real Dad, Real Talk discussion is how important our parents kind of shape and mold us, and how that transcends into the way we parent. And I would just say that type of emotion kind of continue to inspires me. I call him my head janitor. So I want to pivot kind of from, those experiences that you had, from having to be a father very early, being a man of the household.
Yeah.
Why God put you through that, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I thank God for putting you through that.
Right.
Because the man that we have here today, to be able to do all that you do for the community, you're touching lives across the whole entire area.
Right.
And that has shaped you. So, how did those experiences, like what was the biggest takeaway that shaped you into, building Jacob's Ladder to make sure that somebody has, because you always talk about it.
Yeah.
It's making sure that they have representation, making sure that they can find that mentorship. How did you get here?
And let me just continue with what I was trying to say. Never seen my mom take a bad step in her life. She's never misled me.
Right.
Has never told me, anything false, man. So, that goes a long way, right? That resonates, man. She's truly, my hero.
Right.
And as far as, Jacob's Ladder, man, just, being on the police department, man, just seeing a lot of the young black males, right? Just the troubles and being the victims and the suspects, man, of just the serious crimes. You just want to show them a better way, right?
Right.
Again, I'm from Prince George's County, man, so we're from the same hoods that these kids are from, man. They just wanted to show them something better, be an advocate for them, expose them and show them different experiences, just like aviation when you came through and started showing them the aviation, just stuff they've never seen, because nobody's ever really poured into their life, man. Just nobody's really made, deposits in their life, you know what I mean? So when you get to a point in life, man, when nobody's ever really, done much for you, the results are going to show,
right?
Because nobody's really done much for you, right? So we're just trying to make sure, man, that the kids again are exposed. We're really trying to touch these parents because that's where it starts. That's where it begins and ends. Fatherhood, parents, right? So we have a lot of work to do, man. It's a lot of generational trauma, a lot of community trauma going on. That Jacob's Ladder is really trying to address.
Right. Would you say that I think this has been studied throughout, would you say that there's a direct linkage between troubled youth and an absent household via mom or dad? Would you say that there's a linkage between those that are troubled?
Absolutely. Anytime there's an absence of anything, there's going to be troubles, right? Absence of, a parent, absence of any kind of love, absence of food, man, absence of resources. It's going to show.
Right.
Yeah. So absolutely.
Yeah. Jay, you kind of grew up very blessed. Your whole family, Wybitra, mom, dad to my wife, boss lady to me. I just can't never call another woman mom, dad. Just can't happen.
Yeah.
But boss lady. So you grew up. I won't say privileged, but you grew up with two titans in your household. You had a strong, powerful black male figure. You got a boss lady that runs her own brokerage. You merged the two, and they have now your sister who runs the title company. You 40 under 40. That's quite crazy. What would you say when somebody says, "Man, you don't know the struggle of what it's like to be rough fatherhood. You grew up privileged."
It is a privilege. I'm not gonna lie. Not a lot of people are blessed enough to have two of their parents in the same household,
right?
Doing their thing. So it's a blessing. I embrace that.
Right.
I don't want to feel that. I'm glad I haven't had to experience that. So it's a blessing in itself.
Yeah, I appreciate those remarks. You know how many people that I've talked to that grew up privileged, but for whatever reason, you talk to somebody that's from like DC or Maryland. I'm from DC. I'm from Southeast, and it's like, where'd you live? I went to DeMatha. How do those correlate? But you meet a lot of, for whatever reason, our culture, young men, they feel like growing up rough or growing up in a rough situation gives you this bravado, this level of toughness that is going to propel you. But I commend you for accepting that role and accepting all of the hard work that Mr. J has poured into you. Just shout out to the Jordans. But now you're in the seat. Now you're raising Parker. What was your initial kind of reaction when you found out it was your time?
I was scared at first, man. I'm not early in my career, but I'm 27 at this time. When I had him, I was 25. So I was getting started, making motion in my career. So I was nervous at first because I thought I was going to slow everything down, but it kind of amplified everything.
Right.
Because I have somebody that depends on me now. I just had to figure out, man, I had to make a way.
Right.
So, at first it was nervousness. and it just turned into grind mode.
Right. Did you have any specific conversation with your dad to kind of like, hey man, it's my time, or did you feel like you had a good enough example?
No, I had a great example. Right. And I mean, it wasn't too much of what he said to me, more so just seeing him up every morning. Like every morning he's up before everybody, made breakfast, did everything in my eyes perfectly.
Right.
So yeah, it was just a matter of time.
Right.
That it was my time, and I just do the same for my son.
The audio matched the visual. I think we'll hit on that later. So for you, Mr.
Sure.
J, what was your feeling when you found out now your role is transitioning from, father to grandfather, but when it was his time that you knew your son was about to start raising his own?
Yeah, I knew he was ready. I mean, from what he saw, right? I've always been a firm believer I can show you better than I can tell you. So I knew he saw some good stuff.
Right.
So I wasn't too concerned whatsoever. But from that time, just as raising them as their father, man, my role had changed from provider when I was raising them as a provider, but now I see myself more as a protector. So just as my fatherhood has evolved into grandfatherhood, right? It's just moved from being an ultimate provider right now to being a protector.
Right. And did your experiences from the homicide unit shape directly how you parented from what you were seeing to make sure that he didn't find himself going down that path, or any correlation?
No, there was no correlation with me with that one. My parent, definitely was just seeing my mom do her thing. So not just the experience of being in homicide.
Right. And your mom kind of was able to fill both roles.
Oh yeah, I mean like a soldier.
Right.
Yeah, and she's the epitome of I can show you better than I can tell you. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Shout out
to Mama Ora. You better believe it. Shout out to you, Mama. You better believe it.
So Jay, kind of in the seat, and we're gonna start to wrap this up before we transition into everybody. If you thought this was informative, don't miss part 2, where we transition again from roles and responsibilities, where we focus right now on the fatherhood. We're gonna talk about how that role transition when you're married, and how that could get a little interesting and roles kind of shift. So what were some of the inaccuracies that you've had early in your fatherhood that you wish you could either do better, have a do-over, if any, right? Or some of the key takeaways that you'll take, continue to take forward. I'll start with you, Jay.
I mean, I'm still early, man. I'm 2 years in, so.
Right. Formidable years right there.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that I'm doing now is taking more time for my family, because I have a business, so I'm running my business. It's nonstop for the most part.
Right.
But now I'm spending a lot more time with my family. I have the means to do so now, meaning hire people for specific things. But I think that's the only thing that I would have done differently early on, is focus more on my family and my home base than just business oriented.
Right. So that work-life balance,
having a better work-life balance.
Yeah, in my career field, we talk about that a lot. Mm-hmm. I don't think it exists. As much as our senior leaders want to say, hey man, work-life balance. If you want to be successful in my career, there's no balance. I would say work-life harmony, maybe.
Yeah. That's a good one.
I found myself over the last, being around this last year, being at Georgetown University, I spent that year more so at home. Mm-hmm. Now I'm back into kind of this role at the Pentagon, to where I spend probably 75% at work. Mm-hmm. And that's okay for this year. And then, it's going to transition back into a time that I can spend more time. So that work-life harmony. So I'm glad you kind of hit on that, because that's going to be something that we try to discuss a lot throughout this podcast. Mm-hmm. And I think that's powerful, spending more time. So Mr. J, for you, what were some of your inaccuracies? You also kind of lead, the nonprofit called the head janitor. What would you say were some of your inaccuracies, things that you can do better?
I mean, I tell you what, just one thing that jumps out to me was introducing the church earlier. I think that's critical. I mean, Jay, he's with his family in church most Sundays, and his son's just 2 years old. So that speaks volumes.
Right.
So if I would have done anything, differently, that's the first thing that comes to mind. but no regard, regrets whatsoever.
Right. So head janitor.
Yeah.
I'm leading back into it because he talked about that work-life balance. I know for a fact that you're up probably at 5 a.m.
Around
on the way to here, on the way to this establishment.
7 o'clock.
Get ready to get after it.
Let's do it.
Where did the nickname head janitor come from?
Hey, from talking to you, I mean, we would be talking around 7 o'clock every morning. It seemed like when you came here from Hawaii.
Right.
So I mean, I guess just coming through, man, just making sure everything was, the buildings were ready to open. Just having that mindset. Every day is $1 million day. You just never know the opportunity you're gonna have.
Right.
So you got to make sure everything is laid out, everything is perfect. Just the way I live life, man. You get like one bite at the apple, so everything has to be right.
Better season.
So yeah, so I get down, make sure that we're good to go. The buildings are open, they're ready to go. So come like 8:30, 9 o'clock, we can be ready for business.
Yeah. For the audience, the term janitor, I don't think I kind of coined that. I think that came from President Obama when there was a picture when he shook the hand of the janitor and let him know how important he is.
Right.
But it was something that I learned in the leadership role, that every position, every role matters. And the janitor does all the dirty work. They're the ones that change your light bulbs, the little things that you think that don't matter, that matter.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things that I've taken away from you, is that every little detail kind of matters.
Oh yeah.
And so I chose Mr. Jordan to be the godfather of Maverick, the final flight, my son, because when my time comes, and it will, I think I see death kind of differently. I'm okay with that. I want a male that's going to teach my son how to be a janitor.
Yeah, you go.
And I want him to follow your footsteps. I want him to be up first thing in the morning and not sleeping the day away. My grandma used to say, hey man, you can sleep when you're dead and gone.
Right.
Get up and get after it. And that's what you have consistently done, is get up and get after it. It's bigger than just this establishment.
Oh yeah.
I think that it speaks volumes that, you and your family, the first African-American owned business complex in our area, again, shout out to Jacob's Ladder and the home team, and what you mean to the community.
Right.
That right there is fatherhood.
Right.
We oftentimes look at fatherhood as like our own children, but I think you're a father to everybody that walks through those doors of a young male or female that's like, yo, I just need some mentorship, I need some leadership. Where can I go for a safe haven?
Right.
And so putting you back on the spot, can you just briefly cover, some of the resources that you have to offer the community, so that, some kid out there, because I assure you there's going to be one that says, where can I go to feel safe and get some mentorship?
Right.
What could they come here to Jacob's Ladder and get?
Right. Like currently right now for 3 weeks, we have a teenpreneur summer camp that we have. So we have a group of around 10 teenpreneurs that are coming down, just working on their businesses. All right, just perfecting their businesses and on with several different skills. Okay, we have our juvenile reentry program that we go down to Cheltenham Youth Detention Center, aka Boys Village, and we just try to help the kids transition back to the community properly. Right. Tuesday nights, we have a group that has recently returned home from detention that comes here to our office, and we give them the same services. We do a lot of trade career academies. We have the Junior Workforce Academy. When you came, you brought our Flight Academy, okay, teaching them just how to fly and all that good stuff. And just really giving them structure. Right now, we have the Stand Up Deliver food program. So we're delivering over 380,000 meals throughout the rest of this year to the community. I mean, so again, we just stand in the gap. So I mean, you name it, man, you come down here, it's a safe haven, right? And you're gonna really get some positive reinforcements in your life.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, all great stuff. My wife is kind of standing in the back right now and kind of reminding me to talk about my biggest inaccuracy that we discussed. But, for me, it was learning what not to do is what I learned from my father. My father did the best that he could, and he did with what he knew at the time. As a man that was homeless at 14 years old, made a path for himself, whether I agree or disagree. He did the best that he knew how. But I grew up a little bit more, violent, physical. But, that kind of trickled into my parenthood. My father was very dress right dressed. I could not breathe. I had to make sure everything was kind of laid out. And it was the same way with Major. When I went through flight school and, had a divorce, got custody, 3 o'clock in the mornings, going to sleep at 11 o'clock at night, Major was up and ready to go. It wasn't until recently, with my wife and being married, that I realized I wasn't allowing Major to be a kid. I had such a tight grip on him that he was, scared to almost make a mistake, and it felt like he was almost trying to like make me proud, and be like, yo, I gotta be just like dad, and I do think he sees like, the articles and all the things that I'm doing. He's like, yo, how do I be on the same trajectory? So for me, Jay, one of those questions was, I was hesitant to put him in football because I didn't want to make him feel like I was leading you. But once he got into it, it was like he was a natural. He loved it. The same thing now, he's running track. I never touched track. But the fact that he's in it, he's loving it. I don't care what sport he plays, he just got to do something.
Yeah, for sure.
As a young male, you can't just sit up in my house and play video games. You got to get out and get active. And so appreciate the dialogue. I know for a fact the audience had to love, all the leadership and the fatherhood nuggets that you just passed out. I appreciated it. It's been a great part one. We're about to transition over into part two. We're going to dig a little bit deeper into, I would say, that husband role and aspect. And so for me, that has been the biggest challenge, is now, basically bringing two parenting styles together, understanding that those roles don't really mix, but they coexist. So, please join us in part two. We'll be joined by Mr. Jordan. We'll be joined by JJ, and we're going to continue this discussion. So see y'all in part two. Peace out.